Owen's here, a very fast-developing diplomatic crisis, leaving Repsol and YPF investors with some very heavy losses.
Yeah, after the Argentinian government drove a wedge between that partnership in Argentina, Stuart, nationalising YPF after it was taken over by Repsol some 10 years ago. The shares in both these companies took another tumble, as you would expect. Heavy losses for investors, potentially even heavier losses for Argentina on the international diplomatic scene. There's been a massive worldwide condemnation of this move by President Cristina Fernandez's government. And for a country that was only just emerging from the shadow of default 10 years ago and trying to woo international investors, Argentina now finds itself at risk of becoming a new international pariah. Mark Edwards has the story for us.
A diplomatic and financial storm over Argentina's oil fields. The Argentine government claims Repsol, YPF's Spanish owner, hasn't invested enough in its oil sector, while Repsol says Argentina has pushed its share price down to facilitate a takeover of YPF. According to them, the move is illegitimate and unjustifiable.
This
action was preceded by a harassment and coercion campaign and carefully planned leaks intended to lead to the collapse of YPF's share price and thus facilitate the expropriation at a bargain price.
La expropiación a un precio de saldo.
For now, Repsol owns 57.4% of YPF, with 25.5% belonging to Argentina's Peterson Group, 0.02% to the Argentine government, and 17% traded on stock exchanges. Argentina's president wants to seize 51% of the shares, all of which will be taken from Repsol's stake. For some, a justified move.
There's not been a level of investment that corresponds to the utilities the company has. Argentines are living out the consequences of importing combustibles, gas, oil, refined petrol. We need to recover that, because if not, it is going to get worse and worse.
If this goes ahead, Repsol will lose out on the lucrative Vaca Muerta oil field recently discovered by YPF. Spain has warned it will defend its interests, and foreign companies may now reconsider investing in Argentina.
So as we said, Repsol and YPF actually losing 6 or 7% in trading on Tuesday, but we're actually seeing a little bit of a pickup now, aren't we?
Yeah, ironically, against the run of play, at least for those two oil companies, Stuart, world markets actually improving substantially in the last 24 hours. The Nikkei's currently more than 2% up, just leading the pack, as you can see there across the board on the Asian markets. Remember, we had a bond sale in Spain yesterday, which reassured many investors it was oversubscribed, which means that there were more investors wanting those bonds than there were bonds available to buy. On the earnings board as well, I've just put up a few companies just overnight. We've had a few of the blue chip and big American firms reporting earnings. Just one or two to pick out for you. You can see Coca-Cola having the best of the day's results there, with $11 billion in first quarter revenues, up 6% compared to last year. And Yahoo at the bottom, remember, an internet company that we thought was all but dead, just managing to eke out some very modest gains, only 1% up for first quarter revenue, but perhaps a more symbolic earnings considering the turnaround they're trying to achieve there and get that company back on its feet.
So many world markets have given their best performance for a month, but the signs, well, they're mixed, really. Spain is all but officially in a second recession, raising fears it's the next bailout contender, and yet the IMF thinks the rest of the global economy is actually in pretty good shape. Caterina Vitozzi has been trying to make sense of it all.
For the last 6 months, the world economy has been on what is best described as a roller coaster.
A roller coaster which, according to the IMF, is starting to look a little less bumpy. They've slightly hiked their 2012 global growth estimate, up 0.2% from the start of this year. Global markets were buoyed by the news. In Europe, they had their best days since the new year. The French CAC 40 jumped nearly 3%, while in the US, the Dow Jones posted its strongest gains of the month. Yet traders aren't all gung-ho. Billionaire US hedge fund manager John Paulson is short-selling German bonds, telling investors that Europe's strongest economy will suffer as a result of Spain's economic problems. This despite some financial relief for the Spanish government, who sold a higher-than-expected €3.2 billion worth of short-term bonds on Tuesday. But there's a big test ahead.
The market's like a hysterical person who in moments of euphoria is more euphoric than anyone else. On Thursday, we have another auction. A long-term auction. An auction where we'll really see the true state of demand.
Just days ago, Spain's finance minister admitted they were probably in a double-dip recession with record unemployment and soaring long-term government borrowing costs. The IMF has agreed that the Eurozone's debt crisis could still derail global recovery.
Just while we're talking IMF as well, Stuart, it's worth noting that in that forecast for the next year or so, the IMF had some mixed messages for France, really. Yes, they think that growth in France will be a little bit better for this year than expected, but will be worse next year. They also think that unemployment in France will hit more than 10%, a symbolic threshold. The French have never really managed to get unemployment down below that, not for very long at least. They also think, and this is crucial, remember, for a country that's just been stripped of its AAA credit rating, think that France will miss its deficit reduction targets. Remember, all these Eurozone countries are supposed to be bringing down those deficits to 3% of GDP. It thinks that the French will miss that for the timetable it's set out.
Both President Sarkozy and his Socialist challenger Francois Hollande playing off this in their campaigning, aren't they?
Yeah, as you'd expect, they were both at it yesterday on the campaign stump, talking about their various economic plans. Now, for Sarkozy, this IMF information is probably quite welcome news. He's committed to trying to bring down that deficit, doesn't want to really spend very heavily. But his socialist rival, Francois Hollande, one of his central platforms is to create an extra 60,000 jobs, a move that Sarkozy says will simply rattle the markets even more and could lead to France being downgraded again. Francois Hollande was having none of this, though. He told his supporters that France has nothing to fear from financial markets.
No, the euro crisis is not over. You're right to say it. But today, France is not exposed. And let's not make people believe that it could be attacked, because that would be the best way to feed these predictions.
Francois Hollande there. Now let's pick up on some company news for you. And Tesco is expected to set out plans to turn around its fortunes when it reports its annual results later this Wednesday. Analysts are expecting the UK supermarket chain, the world's third largest retailer, to report a 2% rise on pre-tax profits of £3.8 billion. In January, the firm issued a profit warning, in fact, and its share price has tumbled 15% over the past 12 months.
And the two Larrys, that's Ellison and Page, have been battling it out in a California court as the respective heads of Oracle and Google testified in their copyright trial. Google is accused of stealing Oracle's Java software patents to develop the Android operating system it uses for smartphones. Google CEO Larry Page said his firm did nothing wrong, but Ellison, who's seeking around $1 billion in damages, insists his rival has been abusing open source software. Let's just stay with all things tech in a moment. I don't know whether Larry Ellison and Larry Page will ever make it into the pages of a comic book, but one man who has is Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, being immortalized in a new graphic novel about it effectively charts his life from his humble beginnings as a software engineer to founding Microsoft and turning it into one of the world's biggest software companies and the later stages of life, of course, when he's given away many of the billions he made in Microsoft. What do you think, Stuart?
It looks all right. He didn't turn into a superhero. He doesn't have to wear his underpants on the outside at any point, does he? Or?
Well, it's not sure what I think his superpower would be making a lot of money, which he's done already. He follows in the footsteps of people like Mark Zuckerberg. Even Barack Obama was in an episode of a Spider-Man comic around the time of his election. There's Zuckerberg there, already been immortalized in comics. So
super microprocessing man.
That's quite catchy.
Catchy.
That's not bad. Oh, and the late Steve Jobs also as well there. He's also been a comic book legend.
Brilliant stuff. Our super business presenter, Owen Fairclough, here on France 24, and the latest news headlines coming up. Another super presenter, Claire's here after the break.
Who can you trust in the internet era? In Beyond Business, we're asking whether your personal details are safe online. There are growing fears governments are eyeing social networking sites as gold mines of information.
Beyond Business, Saturday 10:15 a.m. Paris time on France 24.